Hello and welcome to From the Be-All-End, the Burnley podcast. This is the debrief for, drum roll please, Luton 1, Burnley 4. Yes, you heard that right. The Clarets making a winning start to their return to the Championship. Scott Parker's first game in charge at Kenilworth Road. With me, Andrew Greaves, I've got Paul Woodhouse and Chris Boden to pick through the bones of what I would say, probably, lads, is a pretty faultless performance, perhaps barring the Luton goal, which causes a bit of nervousness. But Chris, we couldn't really have asked for much more than that, could we? Opening game of the season.
Beyond our wildest dreams. I think if you look back to a couple of years ago at Huddersfield on the Friday night, and everyone was so pleased with the style of football, the goal that we manufactured that night, a clean sheet, but this sort of blows that out of the water. We've seen a couple of sides to Scott Parker's side, so there tonight. We've seen a team that's full of energy, full of pace, will kill teams on the counter in behind, but they've shown an amount of sort of defensive resilience tonight. He come up with a plan to sort of negate Doughty, to double up on him and stop crosses coming into to their front two. And when they had that little sticky spell after half time when Chong pulled one back, they sort of rode that and just grew stronger still within the game. And they could have added numerous other goals. So I think 10 out of 10 first night.
Yeah, definitely. And Woody, I said to a mate, it felt like that time, I think we were 3-1 up at the time, and I said it felt like the feelings I had, as Chris said, against Huddersfield. Me and my mate Pud were in the fan zone watching that, and we weren't watching it together tonight. But it felt like that optimism of, you didn't know what the style of play was going to be under Vincent Kompany. You didn't know what the style of play was going to be like under Scott Parker. But it's that kind of, you're almost blown away by team selection, couple of surprises perhaps. Wout on the bench, we'll talk about that in a second. We had Dara Costello start against Huddersfield. One or two bits, almost kind of similarities where you kind of went, I didn't quite expect him to play, or, didn't expect Vitinho perhaps to play, or where he played. And we'll come on to his goal. But there is that kind of feeling that, you need to make a good start. I think we said you can't get too hung up on win, lose or draw first game of the season. But if somebody had offered you 4-1 before the start, you'd have almost thought they were mad, wouldn't you?
You'd have thought they would have been insane. We were saying, Luton away is arguably one of the toughest games in this division. And I know they had a lot of injuries. And so it wasn't quite the Luton that we would have expected. And their back three were extremely young. They looked extremely fresh-faced. But we didn't have to put them to the sword. And it was the simple stuff that we did that was, that was more striking. That ball from Perez, we kept sliding little balls either on the outside or on the inside, and we just looked head and shoulders above them. And this side that struggled so much, that looked like boys against men, all of a sudden, looked 6 inches taller, 2 yards quicker. When we needed to pass it, we did. We played lovely little triangles, but when we needed to oof it and get rid, we also oofed it and got rid, and that's what I quite liked. It was pragmatic. We played some very nice stuff. Like you said, we played very well off the counter. And, you wanted to put a marker down. I saw somebody mention something over here on CBS about Sheffield Wednesday, saying that they'll be a team to beat. And we were head and shoulders above Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah. We were far better than Sheffield Wednesday. We've just put a marker down, and to think of the players who were out as well, it's going to be all right.
Yeah, we said it in our WhatsApp group, didn't we? I know we've talked about it before, but no Berger, no Amdouni, no Trezor, of course, no, Ekdal, Bayer, Alderkeil, all of these players are, listen, we're going to get rid of some and some are going to move on. McNally, speaking to Phil Bird yesterday, he said that he expected McNally to be involved on the bench because we were a bit light defensively. But yeah, Chris, I mean, Woody mentioned it there, the kind of simple stuff. And a lot of the time, it was the simple stuff we weren't doing well last year, weren't it? It was knowing when to go long, when you're not playing out the back. Andy Hinchcliffe over here on comms said, they're not doing what they did last season, where they're just insisting on playing out from the back when you can't play out from the back. We did mix it up, went long. We'll come on to Foster perhaps in a second, but it was that simple stuff, weren't it? I mean, Brownhill and Cullen in the middle of the park just ticking things over. It was a real kind of, sign of what we know this Burnley side has been capable of, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Especially that word that Woody used, that pragmatism. It's all well and good playing out at all costs from the back if you're your PK and Puyol and Alba and Mascherano and all these types and giving it to Busquets, and fine, but you need if you bringing pressure on yourself and you can't play out, put it, just get shut. And we had a lot of joy with just knocking the ball over the top of them, turning them round, picking up the second ball, just what we called for at times. You can't, you need that mix. People will knock me for keep referring to Sean Dyche, but it's that Nirvana football. How many ways can we hurt them? But you have to retain that, defensive base, that resilience, and that bodes really well tonight. I say, especially bearing in mind, like I said, there's no Bayer, as you said, no Alderkeil, no Ekdal. If Sambo to come in, it's goalkeeper. He could have played Ladke. You've got Etienne Green as well. I mean, Trafford, to his due, I've been probably a bit critical of him, but he barring one cross that he flapped at, he did an all round, solid game. Didn't have a great deal to do, but again, he was playing the ball quicker because he wasn't sort of stressed over picking a pass at the back. If it needed to go long, he put his foot through it. It's simple. We can't be Brazil 70 all the time. You've got to mix it up.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I picked out, Foster, you kind of looked and kind of went, oh, he's not quite got into the game. But the goals that we scored in the first half almost came because Foster had dropped deeper into the midfield to then allow those runs behind. So let's break those two goals down, Woody. I mean, the first one, that pass from Pires, absolute pass. And you kind of think Brownhill must be offside there, and he's really not. I mean, he's a good yard and a half onside. Yeah. Great finish. We then do it again on the other side with Roberts putting Wilson Odegaard in. I mean, they're them kind of goals that we were almost crying out for last season, weren't we? Get somebody running from midfield beyond the back line of the opposition and getting one-on-one with a keeper.
Yeah, it's just basics. You know what I mean? Well, like you said, all last season, we've got arguably two of the quickest and arguably, Odegaard, one of the best wingers in the division. And it's like, okay, we'll just let them run onto it. And in the case, obviously, with Brownhill, but it was so simple. It was a lovely ball from Pires, but we're playing those kind of balls all night when it called for it, and we always had a runner coming onto it. And that goal where he trapped back Foster, where you thought, oh, bloody hell, there's a bit of a VK thing going on there. We thought that was a bit of a Vincent where he gets robbed just on the D, but gets it back, goes on a barnstorming run, slots a little ball out wide. Vitinho gives him the eyes, and slots it home. It's ridiculous shit, and that's your first game of the season.
Yeah, a bit of a goal of the season contender already, Chris, that one, isn't it? The straight line runner back in business. None so straight as that, as Dan pointed out, Dandy Claret pointed out on Twitter, about as straight as they come then. But what a finish from Vitinho. I mean, he lashed that across Kaminski.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the goalkeeper's been great for a couple of the goals tonight. He's he's sort of stuck a leg out and a lazy leg, and it's but he's just again he's got in that position and thought, why not? I'll put my foot through this, I'll drill it across, and he gets his reward. But Foster, I say, considering he didn't have a great deal to work with, in the final third, as you say, he's graft, coming back towards his own goal, trying to hold the ball up, and bring others into play, and that's it. That sort of selflessness to come back the edge of his own box and like he's driven to the edge of the opposition box. You look at him in full flight, takes some stopping. You look at he's added some bulk as well over by the looks of things, and you just got to get the weight of the pass right, and he does. But I say, going back to how many times last season when we were referring to it's just nice to just sort of flip one, over the top for one of the wide players to come in, run along the line and spin in behind. And it's, that and the sort of the third man. I saw Liverpool scored a goal the other day, sort of third man run in their friendly yesterday. That they didn't score under Klopp, and it's one of the hardest things in football to defend the third man run. Everyone's sort of distracted by the couple of players who've had possession, and all of a sudden someone makes a run from deep, and you're like, oh, where's he come from? And bang, you're in. It's great to see. It's exciting, and you like to see. It'd be interesting to see games where we have a bit more possession and we're having to break teams down. Who are banked in. That's going to be a test. But again, we've got the sort of quality for those little given goals and things like that. And, I'd like to see sort of, Foster, show that sort of aggression and passion that he showed in mission to Burnley, and sort of, making crosses his, when they do come in. And then you can, like I say, we can pass through teams, we can go over teams, we can deliver from wide, and we are omni threat.
I mean, Woody, one of the things Vincent Kompany said is we want to create goal scoring opportunities in every phase of play that we had, and last season we didn't see any of that, did we? One of the biggest things one of the biggest issues we had was the lack of goals. It did look every time like we went forward. I mean, Kaminsky pulled off a superb save from O'Shea. I think Vitinho hits the post with another effort that Kaminsky managed just to scramble away. Masengo towards the end has a bit of a break. It really was one of those. I mean, Chris said on the WhatsApp group, it could have been double figures, and it certainly could have been more than the 4 we chalked up, couldn't it? And, there's none of this kind of, try and pass it across the front of the box like we did so many times last season when you get into them positions. There were a couple of times I think Vitinho had one just wide as well. I mean, he could have probably had a hat-trick tonight, but it was that kind of directness that was really refreshing to see, weren't it?
Yeah, it's like they knew what they wanted to do with the ball. It wasn't just funny little flicks for the sake of it and just trying to be fancy and let's play a triangle on his own day and trying to overcomplicate everything. It's like when it needed to go short, it to go short. When it needed to go slightly longer, and it was just taking that pressure off us and allowing us to move up the field. Just little simple things like that was like very impressive. But like we were finding runners from everywhere. When Masengo came on, he came with a little barnstorming run. And once you've got the likes of, Odebear and Koleosho and Foster, and you've got that pace, and they're going to either come in around the back of you, coming through the, through the middle of you, they're going to hold you up, and you've got runners coming off that. That's going to petrify most sides. Really is with the pace we've got, plus the trickery and a little bit of nice besides. We're going to be some side to beat.
Yeah, definitely. One name, Chris, we didn't expect to feature at all. So much so that when the club announced the squad list last week, he didn't even have a bloody number. There was a few rumours before kickoff, and Matt Scrafton from the Burnley Express posted a picture of a certain Mr. Wout Weghorst on the pitch at Kenilworth Road. We wondered whether he'd just popped in on his way to Luton Airport to get a flight somewhere, but he came off the bench. I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but I didn't even realise he'd come back. We didn't have a kind of Wout returns to the squad video like we had for Zeki Amdouni. Were you surprised to see Weghorst in the match day squad, or even just there with the squad, Chris?
Well, hugely, yeah. Given that Amdouni had returned a week before and was considered that he hadn't had enough training under his belt, so Weghorst. They say Weghorst's last action was in the game, the Euro semi-final against England, and where his substitution transformed the game in England's favour. But no, I'm joking. But no, he. But I've seen on in the last podcast before the game, I sort of doubted. I doubted he'd sort of A, want to come back, B, come back, but it's one of those. He is a Burnley footballer, a Burnley asset, and until otherwise, if he's prepared to dig in and put in a shift every now and again, then I take my hat off to him. That's all you want. He's a Burnley player. If he becomes a Vitesse Arnhem player or an Ajax player or a Trabzonspor player, well, whatever. Good luck to him. But until then, put in a shift for Burnley. The club that's that pay your wages. And to be fair, I mean, he showed a couple of touches when he come on. And I say the one thing that would just sort of, if you're a Jay Rodriguez, for example, and some, undoubtedly, let's say Weghorst has shown himself to be he's been a talent. He scored goals on the World Cup stage, on the Euro stage. If you've got that asset, you want to use him. But if you're Jay Rodriguez, I'd be a bit frustrated tonight that if he's coming on ahead of you and you die for the cause, and it's someone else is coming on ahead of you, probably might not even be here in a couple of weeks. I don't know, but if he stays, my word, what an asset. He's shown in those first 4 games or so, and then latterly I think it was a game against Wolves where he pressed like an absolute demon. But other than that's a quarter of his game for Burnley, where he played well, and the rest he was outright ordinary. But if he wants to, to put in a shift and perform to what he's capable of, my word, so you keep using that phrase, embarrassment of riches. It's absolutely incredible, but we'll see. I mean, the other thing with Berger, the usual cynicism, but I think Sky was saying before the game that he's had a series of niggles. Again, we haven't seen the games in pre-season, so we don't know how involved he's actually been. But it's one of those. If Manchester United come calling, then if they can agree a fee, they agree a fee, and he would leave a hole in that midfield, even though we've got, 2 of the best Championship midfielders about.
Yeah, definitely. And Woody, I just want to pick up on something Chris said there about Jay, and I agree. I think I'd be disappointed if I was Jay Rodriguez. Do you get the impression, though, that perhaps Scott Parker may have dealt with that in a slightly different way to perhaps, Vincent Kompany might have done? We know that start of last season, Vincent had kind of, almost just ignored the likes of Charlie Taylor. I mean, Charlie was kind of all ready for going out, and then all of a sudden, when we couldn't get somebody in, we went out and kind of went, oh, actually, you can still play if you want. Do you think, do you get the impression that Scott Parker perhaps deals with those situations a little bit differently, and might have said to Jay, look, you know what, this game coming on isn't for you, but you're going to get a chance, at Turf Moor perhaps, and fully expect if we're, against Cardiff on Saturday that we might want to bring Jay on in that game. Do you think he's going to use his squad in a bit more of a, I don't want to say honest way, but a bit more, players will know that, there's certain games, unless this is happening, you ain't getting on tonight, unless somebody gets injured. Wout's the kind of person I'm going to go to. Or do you think, that's not really for the manager to explain his decisions to players?
Good question. I think it'd be a pretty daft thing for him to do straight off the bat, just to throw Wout in there for the sake of having, showing something, putting a big lad on up front who's going to be going next weekend. That'd be a ridiculous thing to do. That would be it. And so I get the sense from that they probably had a chat, and it's obviously it's a clean slate, and it's entirely up to him how he's going to work with various folk. And you take him, you'll take him at his word. We're going to find out as the season progresses how he kind of manages certain players. But it seemed to be like, after the game that he was going up to everybody, having a chat with everybody, doing a little bit of a clock with everyone, and they all seem very receptive to him. So I think there's some kind of camaraderie and respect there already, and I don't think he'll be able to get through this season by just pissing people off left and right and saying this is all about me. I think he's going to have a little bit of sense as to what might have gone on last season from some of the senior players, and I think he might have a little bit more about him than that.
Yeah, I imagine he probably watched Mission to Burnley over the weekend since we didn't have a game on
Gone shit.
That'd be a bit of a kind of, bit of an eye opener. A couple of other things before we kind of wrap up with this kind of bit of a short debrief for you to listen to. I was interested. I've spent most of the second half trying to work out what jacket Scott Parker was wearing. It's a rather fetching kind of, I don't know if we used to call them kind of members only jackets or blousons or something like that. But apparently, thanks to Nathan Rogers on Twitter, does anybody want to have a guess at how much Mr. Parker's rather fetching bomber jacket cost him tonight? It is I will tell you exactly what it is. It is down as a Brunello Cucinelli logo appliqued pinstripe twill tennis bomber jacket in blue.
At least £1,000 we're talking there, aren't we?
At least £1,000. Woody, any advance on that?
Did he get it from Primark?
Yeah, I think it might be a TK Maxx special, but
45 then. No, probably 9.45.
£1,488.
Good grief. Yeah, he makes beautiful clothes, but not ones you and me are ever going to pull on, I'm afraid. unless we get unless Scott's throwing anything out and he wants.
Well, let's see it. You see a bit of a. Well, I mean, our kind of saviour in waiting, Masengo, did that, didn't he, last year? I think he got rid of some clothes from his wardrobe and did a bit of a bring and buy sale for Burnley FC in the community, which was quite nice. He was kind of selling off pieces from various fashion brands that he'd been sent. But just a quick word about the new third kit. I mean, I know somebody we both know, Chris, at least, Kelvin from the Burnley Express, points out that last year we wore claret and blue at Luton. Today we went with that rather fetching new third kit. I thought it looked rather smart. I thought it looked really crisp and nice and had a real kind of sense of, I don't know, just a nice smartness to it. It almost felt like a Scott Parker-esque jersey, didn't it?
I'm a big fan of a Burnley in a white away shirt with blue shorts. Yeah. Very sort of like 92, 93 sort of thing. But yeah, it does. I think the only thing people have had an issue with is sort of the quality long term with Castore, and things falling off and rubbing off, and 6 months down the line, etc. But yeah, in terms of an actual design, it looks it's looks quite nicely tailored and nice bit of kit. But there's some nice little jackets there on the sly, aren't there? The blue training jacket with the pink trim, and it's. Not bad. I'm an Umbro fiend though. Umbro and Adidas fiend. So if there's any old Umbro stock knocking about,
I think we're in the last knockings for the old Umbro stuff. But I think there's still plenty available. But yeah, I mean, just looking ahead, Woody, to Cardiff. We'll obviously do a full podcast later in the week. But I mean, first home game. I mean, Scott Parker coming into that first home game, Turf Moor, on the back of a 4-1 away win at one of your, seemingly what you expect to be one of your promotion rivals. He'll sleep pretty easily tonight, won't he, on the coach home or whatever time he finally gets back to wherever he's staying. It's going to be quite a nice, happy week down at Gawthorpe, you'd expect.
You'd like to think so. And the other thing about it as well is that, it's going to be a nice homecoming for everybody. It suddenly shifted, everybody will be up, not just players, fans, etc. We won't need a bloody drum. We won't need to talk about any of that crap. People will be into it. People will be, we're back into that frame of mind again. And it's happened very quickly. And I can imagine it's going to be a great homecoming for everybody. And he's going to get a pretty decent reception after what's happened tonight. So, yeah, Onwards and upwards.
Definitely. Forever forward,
Mm.
we might say, if we're going to use a chosen motto. Well, that's it. We're going to leave it there. We've debriefed a rather stunning 4-1 victory at Luton Town. We'll be back on Friday with a preview of Saturday's game. Get your singing voices, get your flag waving voices, and don't forget, if we are losing on 75 minutes, you are obliged to stay until the end and support the lads. Anyway, until Friday, enjoy your week and up the Clarets.